G'day, welcome my friend to WTK, the What to Know show about Scrum, the art of doing twice the work in half the time by Jeff Sutherland. I'm your host, Peter Whalen, and I know what you're thinking, twice the work in half the time, that's a big claim, and it is, but I have experience with this, and I consider it to be an understatement. It can be even better than that. Scrum is a way of organizing teams to efficiently get things done. It brings together decades of research on how people work best. And if you're a software developer, you've probably already used it, or at least pretended to. However, this book is written for the average person. It makes agile methodologies accessible to anyone. My wife likes it. We planned our engagement photos and our wedding reception using agile tools, and that was fun for everybody. So when I first read the manifesto for agile software development, I thought it was self-evident. It was like they were declaring the sky is blue. My programming career to that point was within small companies, and the Gantt charts for our projects looked like a waterfall project, but that's a limitation of the tool. We actually use iterative and incremental approaches, and we always delivered our projects as agreed to on time. But I hadn't encountered a bureaucratic work environment. I thought responding to change rather than blindly following a plan, working software over documentation, and collaborating with our customers over negotiating were all sensible ways of doing business. Who would argue with that? But once I realized once I was working in a large company, I appreciated how much an agile approach to getting things done mattered. Small companies are usually more agile than large, bloated bureaucracies, and agile software development is often referred to simply as agile with an uppercase A, like God. And that's misleading. Agile is not a thing, and it's not something to be worshipped. It's a set of principles and an approach to getting things done. It's useful, but it's not foolproof. So Scrum became popular due to the many successful projects that have used it. And in some cases, a team that had failed a project reorganized to use Scrum, and the exact same team literally accomplished twice the work that mattered in half the time. The individual capabilities and work ethic didn't change. They didn't work longer hours. So how did they improve? And the answer is that the organization of the team changed. They changed how they managed themselves. So it helps to know that Scrum is a term borrowed from rugby. Here's a video of two teams head-to-head in a Scrum. In a Scrum, everyone shows up on time and works together with a singular focus to advance the ball for their team. It's that kind of teamwork, working closely together with each person cooperating and doing their part that I want you to envision on a Scrum team. Having successfully completed a Scrum project doesn't mean you can't backslide. On page 82, there's a story of a house renovation that was done in 6 weeks and on budget using Scrum. A neighbor then hired that exact same crew to do essentially the same work on his house. Well, he didn't make use of Scrum, and it took him twice as long to complete. You've heard countless stories of projects that either failed to launch or they cost mushroomed out of control. For example, healthcare.gov grew from a $90 million project to over $2 billion. And this is due in part to contractors winning projects by deliberately underbidding them. They make all their profits by overpricing the change order. And that means the vendor and the customer are working against each other from day one. There has to be a better way than that. So what if everyone's interests are aligned toward the same goal, which is delivering real value as fast as possible? So let's look at an example from the book here. On page 194, there was a software company that agreed to a fixed price contract to deliver custom software in 2 years for $10 million. And all the changes were free. Well, that sounds like a bad deal for the vendor and a great deal for the client. The client paid $416,000 a month, and they could buy out the contract at any time by paying 20% of the remaining amount. And that's a key point. So the client was satisfied with the software after just 3 months. So they paid a total of $3.2 million to get what they were prepared to pay $10 million for, and they got it 17 months early. So that saved the client both time and money. But what about that poor vendor? They had calculated a profit margin of 15%. By finishing early, they actually made a profit of 60%, 4 times what they were prepared to accept. And they then had the opportunity to go work for some other client for those 17 months. So that's a win-win. So there have been thousands of successes like that. And that's why Scrum is worth applying to your own life. And that's why this book is worth reading. So some of the methods in Scrum have been around a long time. They took proven best practices and organized them into a cohesive approach. Last week I was explaining Scrum to my 100-year-old aunt, and she was a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse in the 1930s. And much of what I described to her reminded her of how she ran her school. So how does Scrum handle requirements analysis? My first job was programming PC support tools for classic JAD, and much of a design sprint is similar to how a joint application design workshop would have been done since the 70s. The terminology is different. The facilitator is a Scrum Master, the executive sponsor is the product owner, but it makes it easier to work with different teams when we all use the same terminology, and Scrum is becoming a standard terminology. Scrum helps mitigate the risk by delivering a minimum viable product as early as possible. It tests the market risk. Do people want what we're building? It tests technical risk. Can we actually build it? And it tests marketing risk. Can we sell what we built? So let's talk about work effort versus due dates. It's important to make a distinction between estimating the effort involved in doing something and estimating when something will be ready. So here's a common scenario that's aggravating for everybody. And the boss goes to a programmer and says, "How soon can I have feature X?" Excuse me. And the programmer interprets that as, if I work on feature X and only that, what is the earliest time that I will have something ready for testing? Excuse me. The programmer will say 1 week, but that's an estimate of effort. To get a date when it would be ready, we have to take into account all the other things that programmer will be doing and will be asked to do. So Scrum sprints help to eliminate those conversations. A sprint is like a time box of consistent duration, typically between 1 and 4 weeks. And the plan is that at the end of each sprint, the issues in the sprint backlog will be done. Nothing is to be added to the sprint backlog once it starts, and that helps. Let's talk about the OODA Loop. The heart of an agile project of any kind is the OODA Loop. It's an acronym for observe, orient, decide, and act. And Jeff learned it as a combat pilot, and he claims it helped him to stay alive. And that's impressive because I was never a combat pilot, and I bet you weren't either. So let's use a mundane example. If you've ever played dodgeball or been in a snowball fight, you've executed an OODA loop. So you observed what was going on around you and where you fit in. And then a key point is that you are observing what is going on in the moment, not what happened yesterday or a year ago. There's a tendency in some organizations to not see things as they are today. So you observe, then you orient yourself based on what you know and what you're capable of seeing. You position yourself where you want to be. You decide who your target will be, and you act, throwing the ball. Then you quickly loop back to observe. Are there any balls heading my way? I orient myself again. Do I duck or do I dodge? And I decide, okay, I'll duck. And I throw. So hesitation means I'd be knocked out. You learn Scrum by doing it, so just dive into it on your next project. You won't get it right the first time, and you won't improve until you start, just like these videos. Another way to look at it is the Deming cycle of plan, do, check, and act that fits within a sprint. You plan what you're going to do during the sprint, you do it, you check that it did what you wanted to do, and then you act on what you learned and you change your approach as needed. Let's talk about teams. Scrum is based on teams of 3 to 9 people that have a sense of purpose. They are self-organizing and they have all the skills needed to complete the project. So picture that rugby scrum I showed you earlier. Team performance matters more than individual performance. So one person may be 10 times faster than another, but a fast team can be 100 times faster than a slow team. So I've experienced that in one of my early programming jobs. A previous team of 3 had failed to deliver a product after a whole year of work. And starting from scratch, I had it ready in 6 months. So Jeff asserts that our behavior, our performance, is shaped by the system we're in. By changing the system, the way things are done, everyone on the team is free to do their best work. And Scrum focuses on solutions, not assigning blame. So you look for systems that reward poor performance and you change the system. Let's talk about time. Wasting your time is like a slow form of suicide. A wasted time means wasted life. And many meetings are a waste of time. People don't show up on time, there's no agenda, and they run far longer than needed. Scrum has a daily stand-up meeting that's no longer than 15 minutes, and it's held at the same time every day. The whole team must be present or the meeting can't start. And that alone is a level of professionalism and accountability that some companies have trouble with. They're not able to execute on it. In the daily stand-up meeting, each team member reports what they've done in the last day, what they plan to do today, and any problems that might prevent it from getting done. Another waste of time is multitasking. If you don't believe that, there's an exercise for you on page 90 that I'd like you to try. It will prove to you beyond a doubt that when you're switching tasks, you are wasting time. It pays to focus and get in the flow of things and not be interrupted. Let's talk about people. A founding value of Scrum is that people matter, that you matter. And so it matters to the team that you show up on time and you do your part. But also your happiness matters. It's common for us to put conditions on happiness. Like, for example, if I lose weight, then I'll be happy. If I achieve this or get that, then I'll be happy. And studies have revealed something that was surprising to me. Happiness predicts success. The happiness comes before the result. Being a little bit happier can lead to much better results. So be happy and succeed as opposed to succeed and then permit yourself to be happy. Things like small compliments can have a great impact. Sometimes it's simple as an acknowledgement of a job well done. And Scrum builds trust within a team daily through those daily meetings and whatnot. How happy are you? Jeff claims he tripled his own company's productivity when he started asking the team what makes them happy at the end of each sprint during the retrospective. And here are the questions that he asked. Try answering them for yourself. The team answers the questions openly, and that implies a level of trust and safety that some relationships lack. Would you feel comfortable giving honest answers to the happiness poll where you work? Would you honestly answer the happiness poll within your family, with your friends? The appendix also has a 5-page summary on how to implement Scrum in just 11 steps. It's that simple. Scrum is easy to understand, but it's difficult to master. It's kind of like kiteboarding. My thanks to Prakash for suggesting today's show. And if you'd love it, if you love the show, great. Would you do me a favor and click on the picture in the corner to subscribe to my channel, because that's helpful. And leave a comment or share it with a friend, or click on the thumbs up button. Thank you for watching. Be seeing you.
That's fairly interesting. This is the What to Know Show with your host, Peter Wayland.